GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
And with that, we welcome you to Trust the Podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This here is episode 139.
Episode 139, my beautiful babies. I wish I could hug every single one of you all. I feel all of your pain.
I mean, yes, it has reached a boiling point. I think the season has reached an ugly head, and we will talk about that in the podcast today. I am Ryan Wolfe, joined as always by John Cimino, my co-host.
It's a me.
You can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, GearNetwork.com, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. As always, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well to stay up to date in the latest podcast. We are talking Buffalo Bills versus the Denver Broncos now. Real quick recap. I'll just be honest with you. First off, if you're listening to this podcast on a speaker without headphones around people, there may be a couple curse words here today just because we're trying to understand exactly what the hell's going on with the Buffalo Bills. So there's your
What the hell's going on out here?
Precisely. That's precisely what's going to happen throughout most of the podcast. Vince Lombardi nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo loses in embarrassing fashion, John, 24-22 to the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football. The loss is not so much embarrassing as the reason why they lost. Now,
yeah. That I could not. I could not believe that this team, right? The one that we've been talking so high about for the last 5 years, right? This team would make an error that even would make New York Jets fans go, what the fuck?
I mean, it's something that when you watch it happen and you think to yourself, these are professionals. These are people who practice this stuff. I mean, Sean McDermott said they practiced the rushing on and off the field the past week, and they still screwed it up. They were called for 12 men on the field after Denver kicker Will Lutz missed the go-ahead field goal attempt.
Yep.
His subsequent attempt was successful with time expiring. It's a complete lack of accountability, John, for a team that is simply supposed to be one of the league's best.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And you know, we'll get to it.
We're going to talk about, because again, it's. There are some big things that have popped up that have been kind of mentioned here and there throughout the podcast, but now that we've reached a breaking point, which we'll talk about in just a second, now it's the time to discuss what exactly is going on in Buffalo. So
and where they go from here. Like, you know, under normal circumstances, I would say, you know, even at 5-5 with XYZ amount of games left to play, you know, not our, you know, as Aaron Rodgers once said, RELAX. But this is not one of those relaxed situations. This one feels like I mean, you know, just to kind of regurgitate this.
What the hell's going on out here?
Nobody freaking knows what the hell is going on.
It's more of a PANIC at this point in time because, like you said, John, nobody has a clue what's going on. But there have been some very good articles, some very good talking points brought up this week, things that, again, we've mentioned, we've talked about, and we're going to talk about here today on the podcast simply because
and I will say selfishly, Ryan, I was looking forward to this podcast only because, you know, Ryan, the journalist, you know, I tell you all the time, and I try to make sure to give you your flowers while you're alive to receive them. But when we do this podcast and you drop the stats and stuff that you do, best in the business, bar none. But this one is not. I felt right after the end of the game, and I sat there staring blankly at the TV, 11:15 at night, and the first thought that went through my mind was, number one, is Brian alive? You know,
I mean, it was.
And then the second thought was, I can't imagine that this week's episode is going to follow the previous chain of episodes where we first big thing, we hit the stats, then we talk, the offensive stats, the defensive stats, then we go to the second of three big things. And then the third, like this one is I felt like this one would be a little more free flowing, especially after waking up the next day to get the news that we got and it was like, oh crap! Like this is a week unlike most during the process era.
Yeah, in this podcast, we're not going to talk stats. The game is the game. They lost in embarrassing fashion. There's not much more to say because it's a continuation of what we have seen through the first 10 games of the season, win or loss. It's really been the same story. So jumping into our three big things, it's really just going to be two things because first off, just as always, this segment is brought to you by puckluck.com, your one-stop resource for all of your National Hockey League sports betting action. Puckluck provides win percentages, score projections for each and every National Hockey League game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just in a rut? Not to worry. Puckluck also provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note, puckluck.com, no way affiliated with the National Hockey League, its teams, or the NHLPA. Puckluck.com provides data related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. As always, please gamble responsibly. Now, John, the first and second of the three big things this week, we're talking about breaking down the breaking news. Mm-hmm. The new offensive coordinator of the unemployment line on Tuesday morning, the Buffalo Bills announced the firing of offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. And John, I believe we have an exclusive Trust the Podcast comment from Ken Dorsey.
I do. We do. And listeners, listen, I mean, this is just very, very it's very telling. So when you hear this comment from Ken Dorsey, I want you to understand where his mind is. He's probably just as in shock with everything as we are. But take a listen.
Called for help twice and not a fuck you. What do you need or nothing?
John, I actually am being told that's not Ken Dorsey.
It's not? Who's telling you that? I'm the executive producer.
That's awkward.
All right,
that's awkward. That's awkward. It's the truth, though, man. It's the truth, though. I hope you think that's funny because I thought it was, it's fitting. Because again, the offense of the Buffalo Bills, man, like it's not really the problem, but it ultimately is.
It certainly hasn't been the solution, though.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. I'm just kind of trying to preface here. The offense statistically has not been the problem, but they have struggled recently. So what's been happening? Sean McDermott emphasized the decision was reached due to a desire to have increased confidence and energy and to, quote, find consistent production. And there's no secret, John. Buffalo struggled to find that offensive consistency and put drives together. They've had 21% of their drives ending in a turnover since week 5 last in the National Football League. Pointed out by ESPN, statistically, the Bills' offense looks among the best in the NFL. And as we mentioned, once you find out how the sausage is made, you're like, ugh, that's kind of gross.
Right.
They rank third in offensive EPA expected
very,
points.
very, very good analogy there.
Ranking third in offensive EPA expected points added per play, second in the league in completion percentage at 70.3%, third in yards per play at 6.0 yards per play. But the reality for the Bills is that performing at a high level wasn't consistently happening due to despite a relatively healthy offense, and frustration was clearly building since that offense took a turn.
Oh yeah,
during that week 5 loss. I mean, honestly, I'm just kind of scrolling through here. I want to get down to this stat here for you. Since week 5, John, the Bills offense has scored an average of 7 points per game in the first half. That's 4th fewest. It had a league high 8 turnovers in the first 2 quarters of those games and leads the league with 13 turnovers since week 5. Josh Allen has thrown 10 interceptions on throws of 10 or more air yards, tied with Jordan Love for the most this season. Josh Allen has completed 15 of 38 passes, or 39.5%. That's 22nd in the league, of 15 or more air yards since week 6. So what does that tell me on the surface right now? The play calling has become stagnant. Now, again, we look down here. The Bills have had trouble with turnovers. The Bills have had trouble with dropping easy catches. I get that. Mina Kimes on Twitter points out through week 10, the Bills offense is 3rd in DVOA, 1st in success rate, 3rd in EPA per play, 4th in QBR, 3rd in yards per play, 2nd in third down conversion percentage, and 3rd in red zone efficiency. But Warren Sharp points out at Sharp Football on Twitter, who we're going to mention again here shortly, wrote an incredible article about what the problem is with the Bills, and it makes a lot of sense. But since week 5, since that loss in London, the Bills rank on first half drives 32nd in turnovers per drive. That's 24%. The average is 10%. 30th in drives that score points at 21%. That's 38% league average. 30th in plays per drive, 4.8. The average is 5.7. 28th in points per drive at 1.2, average is 1.9. 24th in touchdowns per drive, that's 15%, average is 20, and 22nd in yards per drive at 27, the average is 31. So again, what's happening with the Buffalo Bills, it seems like the offense is struggling to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it gets to the point where they have to come back in the game, the play calling has been so vanilla, so stagnant, lacking any sort of creativity to the point where you're making simple mistakes. I mean, Josh Allen is throwing interceptions. Josh Allen should not be throwing. Right. Josh Allen, his confidence is completely wrecked.
Absolutely. He does not look like the Josh Allen that we've seen the last 2-3 years, where it's like, okay, he may have gotten over that emotional hump that we've talked about ad nauseum in his earlier years. He's gone back. I was talking about this with Mr. Paul during the game, but it just, whatever it was, it's such a sharp, like 180 from last year with him.
Brett Coleman, John, broke it down perfectly. Buffalo is very good at getting themselves in position to score, but they're simply not scoring due to turnovers or punts. Like, Buffalo is not kicking field goals anymore.
Right.
It's either you're getting a turnover, you're getting a punt, or you're getting a touchdown. He points out that Buffalo, again, simply not kicking many field goals either. So their expected points, the EPA, sorry, my brain just farted there. Their EPA per play is high, but their actual points are not. Chris Sims, ex-NFL quarterback, points out as well. Direct quote from Twitter. I get that a lot of numbers point to the Bills having a good offense, but I promise you that it isn't because of play calling prowess. Film doesn't lie. There is rarely cohesive flow or plays tied together. There's too much burden on Josh Allen to make things happen.
We've said that on this very podcast. We've actually talked about that with Josh Allen, and our thought of earlier this season. I even asked you, do you have confidence in Kyle Allen if Josh Allen were to be injured? And your answer was no. I don't,
because they don't have a game plan, a valid game plan outside of, we're just going to put all the pressure on Josh Allen. And right now it's not working because, again,
and not only that,
trend, we've seen the same trend around the league too. Good quarterbacks are struggling because defenses are being called differently.
Right.
So
and they're catching up. Exactly.
Yeah, if you don't adjust to that, you're going to keep making the same stupid mistakes, which we've seen with the Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely. Now, John, you're absolutely right there. And that was another point I was going to hit. You just hit the nail right on the head there. It feels like this is same old, Buffalo Bills football from the last couple of years. And one of the things that we've been talking about, and I've always been talking about, and the great quarterbacks have always been able to adjust and this and that. And not saying that Josh Allen isn't a great quarterback. He's certainly top 5 in the league still. I don't care what anybody says right now. But when the offense is running the same style of football that they have been consistently for the last 2 years, the league is going to catch up. And when the league catches up, it's very, very hard to all of a sudden flip right around and go somewhere new, do something new without having a bit of a transitional period. So this bodes the question that I actually have for you, Ryan. And I'm wondering here, you can't blame Leslie Frazier, right? He's not there. Now Ken Dorsey's gone. If at the end of this season, I want journalistic Ryan's response, and I also want fanboy Ryan's response. Sure. But if at the end of the season the Bills miss the playoffs, is McDermott next?
I don't even think that they have to miss the playoffs for that to be the case, honestly. I think at the end of the day, if you fired your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator in the last 12 months. And the one thing I like to say, John, I've said this to you, but I feel like I've said this to you before, said it in passing. There's an asshole in every group.
Yep.
If you don't know who the asshole is, it's probably you. I think we're getting to the point now with Sean McDermott where it's like, well, what's the problem?
Right.
Well, it's not the defensive coordinator. It's not the offensive coordinator. It's gotta be Sean McDermott. And the reason I say this, it seems to me like I don't think Sean McDermott is a bad coach.
Right.
I think the message is growing stale in Buffalo at One Bills Drive. It seems like the Bills have hit their ceiling with Sean McDermott as head coach. We know what the best can be. The best can be 13 seconds, right? They got themselves to the doorstep and they fucked up for lack of a
Right.
better explanation.
Sure.
And they've been trying to fix that, to right that wrong ever since. And it will probably end up being their downfall. There's a very, 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 very good article by Warren Sharp at sharpfootballanalysis.com, which I'm going to be pointing out a few things from his article here shortly that I just want to kind of reinforce the argument here. But first off, it's a lot of the same stuff. There's no change. It seems like Sean McDermott has to be the head in charge, right? There can be no one more powerful than him. He has to be the one controlling the narrative, because if we saw with Brian Dable, once a part becomes bigger than the sum, all of a sudden there's a weird thing. And we've talked about that earlier in the year. We saw the weird handshake after the Bills Giants game where it was very uncomfortable to watch.
Yes.
But there's just simply been a lack of accountability, which has enraged the normally docile fan base, which again, that's more of a joke because we know how Bills Mafia can be.
Right,
once dynamic offense has been dumbed down to a vanilla version of itself. Multiple NFL talking heads have commented on how Buffalo's major offensive problem is that their offense has become too simple and easy to prepare for.
Right.
And honestly,
exactly. The point we made 5 minutes ago where, the offense has been the same old thing since the last 2 years and the league has caught up. And now the Bills are like, oh shit, what do we do?
Follow me on this one. Firing Ken Dorsey feels more like an ass-saving move by McDermott than anything. Per
100%.
Per 100%. Sharp at sharpfootballanalytics.com, he points out, and again, if this is too much to follow along, I'll make sure to try to speak succinctly so that way it's not too much to digest here. But
I'll give you bonus points for the use of that word succinctly.
Thank you. Quote, the conundrum, I did graduate college once. The conundrum of the Bills 2023 offense is not easily solved, but apparently it's bad enough to get the play caller fired. On a per play basis, the Bills offensive ranks first in success rate, second and third down conversion rate, third in early down success rate, third in EPA per play, fourth in a rate of downs converted into a first down, and fourth in points per minute of possession. As compared to 2022, the 2023 stats are either better or at worst comparable. That said, this offense has trended worse over the last half of the season to date. Since week 5, the Bills are scoring points in only 31% of their drives, which ranks 27th, but this is largely due to two key factors. One, their defense has given them the worst starting average field position of any team, their own 24.3 yard line. Number 2, they are turning the ball over on 21% of their drives, the worst rate in the National Football League. Does this excuse the offense? No, it's not. Does it mean a primary problem with the Bills is their offensive play calling and their OC should be fired? Also, no, it does not. Going further, what did the Buffalo Bills do to become so freaking good, right? They started passing the ball a ton early. In 2020, the average pass on first down in the first 3 quarters of 2020 was 50.6%. Buffalo was at 65% of that passing. They were the number one most pass-heavy team in the National Football League. That philosophical change allowed the offense to score 501 points, second most of any teams. Their 2020 drives, and again, this is all from the Sharp Football Analysis article, so it's not just me spewing things off. I'm
Sure. Yep.
Down. Their 2020 drives scored points at 49% rate.
I'm just going to say, not to interrupt you, but I am thoroughly entertained right now. So please, just keep going. I am entertained right now.
They scored in 2020. They scored points at a 49% rate. That was second highest. They punted only 24% of the time. That was the lowest in the league. As importantly, they ranked number 2 in the rate of which a set of downs converted into another first down or touchdown, 80%. Now, being aggressive, that allowed them to get to the wild card. They won in the divisional round. They fell short to defending Super Bowl champions in the conference championship round. But you look at what happened. Just a little nugget. In the third quarter, well, first off, I should say here, it should be noted they led 9-0 in the championship before allowing 3 touchdowns. They were trailing 21-9 with a 4th and goal from the 4-yard line, opted to kick a 20-yard field goal to trail 21-12 at the half. In the third quarter, McDermott also opted to kick a field goal on 4th and 3 at the 8-yard line to cut a 12-point deficit to 9 points. That wasn't on Brian Dable. That wasn't on Josh Allen. Those were on Sean McDermott. Those were Sean McDermott's decisions. After the season, Allen gets praised. Dable gets praised. He was named the AP NFL Assistant Coach of the Year, but Sean McDermott's name not praised as much. In 2020, the Buffalo Bills defense fell off. And he mentions, Warren Sharp mentions here, was there an element of animosity about the team making a deep playoff run and all the praise going to Dable and Allen? We saw that. We saw that happen And then after 2020, Sean McDermott said, quote, "You have to start over. Yes, we can carry a lot of things forward, but every year you have to start over. You have to rebuild the football team. You have to grow as an individual. You have to take it upon yourself just because we had success to ask yourself the hard questions." I can start off saying we've got to be able to run the football better. Says here, Warren Sharp says here, what are we talking about here? If McDermott doesn't kick field goals and actually coaches to win in key fourth downs, the Bills might make the Super Bowl. Now we're talking about a hard reboot.
Right.
So then you go to the next season. The run game, not the defense that was significantly worse in 2020, not building on what worked offensively in 2020, not developing a young quarterback who is developing off the first year of it being his quote offense and hoping to enhance the weapons while he's still in his rookie deal. He then points out, but starting over and starting that process with the run game. He says, "This reminds me of the famous Maya Angelou quote, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time."
It's a
Sean McDermott showed his ass,
mm-hmm.
and the Buffalo Bills have gradually moved their way back down to being not as good as they once were. I mean, again, I'm scrolling through this article as I'm.
I don't want to go ahead and say that
a lot of sense there. I'm sorry, but
no, it's all right. I pick up what you're putting down, and look, I don't know that we're in danger of seeing the Bills becoming the drought era Bills, right? The Dick.
No, but this is directly a an indictment of Sean McDermott.
Yes, and no, I 100% agree. And right now, again, it's all eyes are on him at this point. It's not about Josh Allen because he's not going anywhere. You know that they locked him down. He's there for years to come. It's not even on Steph Diggs, whom is again, here comes the talks about him being unhappy and him being out of there after this year and all that. The eyes are solely now focused on McDermott and how he rebounds here. One of the things at the preseason, I said, and we asked collectively how McDermott was going to handle the additional responsibility of the defensive of calling the defensive plays. Is he going to be able to properly coach this team? Is he going to be able to continue to deliver the message? You know what I mean? And now here we are halfway through the season. The OC is gone. The state of the affairs there at Orchard Park is kind of in a bit of a flux right now. And there's no one else to blame at this point.
And you know what blows my mind too, because again, I'm just finishing up this article here, and I'm going to jump back to the podcast outline. Remember the game where the Buffalo Bills lost to the Patriots, and it was like that Hurricane Bowl game? It was very weird. In 2021, I believe it was.
I'm sure. I don't remember it. I remember watching it, but I don't actually remember.
So they lost the game. There was like the 50-mile-an-hour winds, whatever. It was awful.
Oh, yeah, that one. Okay, yes.
Again, McDermott was taking stronger and stronger shots at Brian Daboll and the offense, and then he said something that to this day now feels very important. He said, quote, "If you were in the team meetings in training camp, you would know what style of offense I want."
Wow.
It's not. Again, at the end of the day, it all comes back to accountability. Sean McDermott clearly wants this offense to run the ball more effectively. We saw what happened on Monday night. James Cook fumbles the ball, gets the ball ripped out, gets benched, comes back, runs for over 100 yards. And again, shit happens. I mean, was I annoyed that he fumbled the ball? Absolutely. But the Buffalo Bills have been stepping on rakes and smacking themselves in the forehead
right
since week 5 now. Week 5. There's been no accountability when it matters the most. I mean, we saw it. You remember when the Bills lost 13 seconds. Sean McDermott refused to take accountability for
he really did, and I know that burned the ass out of a lot of Bills and instead, the Bills Mafia.
Instead of taking the blame head on, it's always something else. When the going gets tough, McDermott has shown a penchant for deflecting blame. Again, you just mentioned it, but if you remember correctly, his lack of accountability after 13 seconds ran dangerously close to dividing the locker room. That was a team
I do remember, and I remember us talking about that on the podcast, saying like, that was because we thought that was very odd to begin with, because up until that point we had kind of been like, this is the process and the process has been working and, yay Buffalo. But then we got that and we were like, oh shit, like where'd that come from kind of thing,
this is a team that should have been able to go from 2020, say, look, we fucked up. Like, in the look, we fucked up. We lost Doug. Okay, great. We fucked up. We lost to the Chiefs. Now what do we do to figure it out? We got to go find the man on the hotel roof. The Bills just said, nah, fuck it. Leave him there. Let's go do something else. We'll try to find a better way to do it. A friend of mine, I'm not going to mention him, but a friend of mine pointed out, you know who you are if you said this. He said that man, Sean McDermott, had the best offense in the National Football League, looked at the man directly responsible for it, Brian Dable, and said, quote, I don't know, we could do something different.
I don't disagree with that.
Literally have one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. Mm-hmm. Guess what you've done this year? You clipped his wings and said, don't run the ball. We want you to take away your dynamicness. Now, mind you, Josh Allen not running the ball and not being super dynamic, he's still a good quarterback. But here's the thing. If the offensive coordinator doesn't have plays that can scheme guys to be open, what are you going to do? I mean, yes, not all of the interceptions are due to that. There are some interceptions where Josh Allen simply made a poor decision. But guess what? It's a long season. You throw the ball a lot. You're going to make poor decisions. Not everybody's perfect. But again, at the end of the day, I don't, and this is another thing that's really driving me crazy. You can tell very quickly who watches the Bills games and who actually pays attention and who's just looking at the stats and going,
well, if you couldn't tell by looking at them, you can certainly tell by tone of voice. Holy shit, Ryan.
when they say, John, well, fuck, man, Josh Allen throws a lot of interceptions. He fumbles the ball a lot.
He really does though. And like, that's
the least of Buffalo's worries right now.
Right. That's the thing. That's not the biggest problem that Buffalo has, believe it or not.
John, we have talked about this numerous times, and I'm sorry to jump in. We have talked about this so much. There have been so many weeks where I have said, Josh Allen sets NFL record. Josh Allen in elite company. Josh Allen's done something no other player has ever done before.
Absolutely.
You take the good with the bad. Yeah, sometimes the shit sandwich is not a slider, it's a Big Mac. And it's worse. But hey, guess what? You find ways, and that's another thing. You find ways. How do you become a good coach with anything, with your job, in your relationship, with your kids, with your sports teams, whatever it is? You have to find what people are good at and coach to that and try to coach away from what they're not good at. Okay. So Josh Allen has a tendency to go galaxy brain and throw some bad passes sometimes. The dog sometimes will piss on the carpet if you're gone just a little too long. He'll take a piss on the carpet, right? Yeah, it happens. So how do we avoid doing that? Let's scheme better. That's not the case. It's just, well, fuck, let's just go to the next guy in line who just so happens to be a Sean McDermott guy again. Shocker. Like, they're bringing in Joe Brady, who's the quarterback's coach. He's got a good relationship with Josh Allen, just like Ken Dorsey did, which is how Ken Dorsey got the job.
Right. But
Joe Brady graduated from William and Mary, same as Sean McDermott. He coached for Carolina, same as Sean McDermott. Now, mind you, Brady was the passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach for the 2019 LSU Tigers, who won the national championship with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and others. But again, it's the same goddamn story. It's, well, if you're not with me, you're against me, and you're going to be finding a new fucking job.
Yeah. Now, I mean, even that with that stat, that's a wonderful stat. He was the passing game coordinator for the 2019 Tigers with Burrow, Chase, and others. But in the same, we are at the midway point of a professional football season. And when you make that kind of a move, the OC is that it's a general manager, and then it's head coach, and then it's the OC and DC, right? Like, that's the tree, right?
Yep.
You removed the OC middle of the season, and now you're going to be installing a new one, whom, regardless of whether or not they were within that family of coaching tree, there's still going to be a little difference of philosophy or a little difference of getting the message across, and doing that at a midpoint of the season when you've got the Miami Dolphins, who can't win against the team above 500, running away with the division right now because the Jets are playing like shit too. And the Patriots are playing even worse.
Did you know the Dolphins' strength of victory right now is a league worst 0.263?
And that's unbelievable to me. But then again, but herein lies where we are right now. Like, making that decision knee jerk, next day, next morning, alters the course of your entire offense. And I'm sorry, I know we're in an era of life and in an era of professional football where lightning, you always want to catch that lightning in a bottle, but something in a position that like massive, short of firing the head coach midseason, firing an offensive or a defensive coordinator is really more often than not throwing in the towel for the season, because you don't have a full off season in this program. The new OC, be it interim or official, wants to make their mark, so that way the interim label can be removed and they can become official. Or if they're not, they at least have a shot of that somewhere else in the league at any one of the other teams. So
I've got a feeling that if Joe Brady shows that he has a pulse and the Bills don't completely fall on their face, he'll probably get the job. Because again, it's all about that power dynamic that Sean McDermott can continue to rule with an iron fist. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I think what Sean McDermott has done for the Buffalo Bills has been fantastic, but we're reaching a point now where what's the problem?
But here's the thing too. Now, offensive woes aside for the New York Jets, their next opponent, the defense is very, 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 very good. They are a very good defense. And to make a move like this, number one, takes stones when you're heading into one of the league's top 5 defenses. And number two, it's I don't know, man. I think it all just goes back to thing one because
I think you're giving him too much credit, man. I think you're honestly giving him too much credit. It's something where the noise has gotten progressively louder around Ken Dorsey. Sean McDermott has said, not talking about it. Okay, we want a little more out of him. Okay, we expected a lot more out of him. We didn't get it. Mm-hmm. So he's going to reverse Uno. Well, we're just going to bring a new guy in because that'll solve the problem.
But the Bills' schedule for the remainder of the season is not a freaking cakewalk.
Don't you worry. I'll get there. I will get there. Don't you worry.
All right.
So the thing that blows my mind is that Sean McDermott is this defensive guru, right? The NFL has transitioned more to a Vic Fangio style defense where he plays. Vic Fangio likes to play a too high safety set, which allows, from what I'm gathering, because I'm not a super brilliant scheme guy, I just read and understand what's going on, is that it allows you to disguise the defense that you're playing in, which makes it obviously more difficult to understand what's going on. Sean McDermott, a defensive mind, can't seem to crack this code. So why don't you, defensive guru, help the offense? And again, I don't know the dynamics or whatever, but like, hey, if the defense we've talked about, I've said this before, it's going to be in the buzzword of the, you look up the podcast, it's going to be, hey, defenses are telling you, you're not going to beat us deep. You're going to have to dink and dunk us. We dare you to. And quarterbacks don't want to do that. That's not sexy. That's not going to get them the MVP or put them on Sports Center or whatever. Like they want those big ass plays. They want to tear the defense apart. They want to be the guy. And defensive coordinators have realized that. So they're playing them differently. Okay. Sure. So why don't you scheme more plays to bust that up?
Absolutely.
Apparently you can't do that. Buffalo only seems to want to run the ball when it's, I would say, relatively inconvenient. The thing about the Bills is that they have been successful offensively because they have been ultra aggressive.
Right.
They need to go back to that ultra aggressive nature. We saw it a few weeks ago where the Buffalo Bills became the first team in a very long time, if not ever, I can't remember the stat exactly, where they were on the opposing team's fourth and less than whatever, and they were on the opposing team side and they punted the ball. There's no killer instinct. There's no aggressiveness. There's no, hey, look it, we're winning by 10. Let's go win by 20. It's just it's like, oh, hey, a win is a win. That's perfectly fine with me. And then when they have to go out and actually put their foot in the gas pedal, they stall out. And I mean, like you said, John, where do we go from here? The Bills have the third hardest remaining schedule in the National Football League. Sean McDermott, I don't even say could be, certainly. I really think at this point, I think that Sean McDermott is actively coaching for his job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We talked about that earlier in the podcast, but absolutely, because like I said, Lindsay, oh my God. My brain fart. Leslie Frazier, he's gone already. That Ken Dorsey, he's gone now. There's no one else but McDermott. The eyes are solely on McDermott now for the rest of this season. If this team does not rebound, and we're talking, you got Jets, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, back to back to back to back. And I would almost even ask and wonder, and maybe we can think about this after the commercial break, hypothetical or situation or whatever. But given the woes of the New York Jets offensively, if the Bills lose to the Jets this coming Sunday, and loses the season sweep for the first time in probably 100 years, what happens there? What happens to McDermott there? Do you think that expedites that? Because there's a lot of variables here. The Jets, their offense sucks, but their defense is fantastic. The Eagles, the Eagles are the Eagles. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Cowboys, especially when you're playing at 4:25 on Fox, that's their time frame. Fox loves them. They're Cowboys, right? They've been showing up. Dak Prescott has been playing pretty freaking lights out lately. And I don't, does McDermott survive after those 4 games? But does he survive the one after the Jets? If hypothetically the Jets were to win, does he survive after that? There's going to be a lot of eyes on Orchard Park.
We can talk about that a little more when we come back, because there's a few more thoughts I have. Then we can wrap up and move forward from there. But we'll take a quick commercial break, catch our breath, get a sip of some tasty beverages here, and we'll be back with more Trust the Podcast.
I'm ready for High Life number 2 after that. Holy hell, man. And we got a lot more to go, folks. So
we'll be right back here. Trust the Podcast on the Gear Radio Network.
Hey, them Bills!
And we're back here on Trust the Podcast. John, wrapping up our thoughts about Sean McDermott and what's next for this Buffalo Bills offense. I think at the start of the year, as the injuries piled up, and I wanted to mention this too before we moved on, I think Sean McDermott bought himself some benefit of the doubt, because the defense has been relatively good in consideration with who has been playing meaningful snaps. I mean, on Monday night, Josh Norman, no offense to Josh Norman, but a few weeks ago, he's on his couch playing meaningful snaps for the Buffalo Bills defense. Like, those are the kinds of things where you say to yourself, hey, you're going to buy yourself some rope. But
I get that. I'll see that, and I'll raise you Robert Saleh, because Robert Saleh is in his 3rd year as the New York Jets head coach, and obviously the team loves the message, and the defense has vastly improved from Adam Gase and from Todd Bowles before him, right? But that offense has not done dick in like 3 years, 4 years, right? It has not changed at all there, right? So you can buy yourself some time. You could be a great defensive coordinator, but you can be a piss poor head coach. Look at Bowles again out there in Tampa. He had the benefit of Tom Brady last year, and that was Tom Brady's final year. And now he's got the benefit of Baker Mayfield and a solid offense, but he's not a very good head coach
guy here. But I think that McDermott is a better head coach than both of those guys, and I certainly think that someone will scoop up Sean McDermott very quickly if he does hit the market.
I get that, but I guess what I'm saying is, in comparison, when you compare like how the defense for the Buffalo Bills has been playing in spite of those injuries, McDermott's a defensive-minded guy, so that there really shouldn't be overall surprising. Not nearly as surprising as
but the fact that
when you have an offense like the Buffalo Bills do, and none of their parts have really moved. Right, this has been the same Buffalo Bills team for the past few years, and it's I mean, a complete 180. This year on the offense, and you're not doing anything as the head coach. Even if you're a defensive minded guy, as a head coach, you have to sign off on a lot of the things that your staff is doing. And if you are consciously saying every game, okay, I trust that, do your thing. Okay, I sign off on that, do your thing. At some point, man, not everybody's cut out to be a head coach. I don't think Saleh's cut out to be a head coach. I love them. I love the dude. I absolutely love his message. I love what he's done for the New York Jets culture. I don't think he's a long-term head coach. Belichick, on the other hand, this season aside, and yes, he did have Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is the exception to the rule. He's the Michael Jordan of the NFL, whether anybody in Western New York or East Rutherford wants to admit that or not. But in the same, Belichick knew enough to keep his coaches in check and understand. He reviewed the plays and he at least understood what they were doing. And I don't think McDermott has that understanding of the offense that a Bill Belichick does or an Andy Reid does. I don't think McDermott is there. But that's cool that that in spite of losing the Josh Allen of his offense, in spite of losing Matt Milano, he's actually coaching up that defense to actually, remain in the game and stay competitive. But in the same, they're allowing a lot more points than I feel like they've done in previous years when they've had a lot of, when they've had all their folks there on defense. So again, I don't know, man. This is a very, 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 very weird time.
There's just been a lack of consistency and no real reason to explain why it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, if the Buffalo Bills, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, I can't say my favorite saying on the air because it's offensive, so I'll just keep it to myself. But Sean McDermott, if the defense is healthy, this team is probably a 2 or 3 loss team right now.
I would agree because their defense would keep them in the games.
Their defense,
in spite of all the turnovers.
Yeah,
and even with the turnovers, they're still right. And even in the turnovers, they're still scoring. Unlike the Jets, they're still scoring touchdowns. So at minimum, if their defense is there to keep them in there, we're having an entirely different conversation. We might be talking about Josh Allen's turnovers, but in the same, we might be talking about Josh Allen's turnovers in a Buffalo Bills win, not after having lost 1, 2, 3, 4 out of their last 5.
What I was saying before about McDermott getting the benefit of the doubt with the defense is that when you start to put more of the spotlight on yourself and more eyes are on you, you quickly burn up that benefit of the doubt. And I think that the more losses the Buffalo Bills take, the quicker those walls are going to start closing in. We know that the Buffalo Bills are going to have a very tough matchup against, even the Jets, because like you said, John, the defense is very good. It'll be very impressive if they can beat the Jets on Sunday.
I think they will because the Jets have an extreme inability to be able to score touchdowns.
I am no longer saying the Buffalo Bills should be able to do anything. Honestly, like they should do it. Can they do it? Yeah. Will they do it? No guarantees.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm at the point where they have the opportunity to handle that. Playing the Eagles, playing the Cowboys, I don't think there's a shot unless you're going to outscore them 45. You're going to need 40, 45 points to win those games
easily.
But then the Chiefs, the reason I bring the Chiefs up is the Bills have the Chiefs number in the regular season, can't beat them in the postseason. So and the Chiefs have been, despite their record, because they literally have one of the best defenses in the league right now. It's taken pressure off their offense, and Patrick Mahomes has not been as Patrick Mahomes as he normally is.
Mm-hmm.
Having a very good defense will allow you to get away with that. So maybe the Bills win that, but I don't even honestly think that if you've got 5 games left in the season.
Mm-hmm. Oh, do what game? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 games.
5 because they're 5-5. That's why I said 5.
Jets, Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, Pats, and then closing out the season at Miami with the Dolphins.
You're going to need to get to at least 10-7.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how that's possible with the schedule.
It's certainly going to be. And it really is going to be tough. It really is going to be tough.
I can roll back to the first podcast we had this year. Mm-hmm. That if the Bills don't dominate, your best solution is probably going to be the Bills going 8-9 or 9-8 and Sean McDermott getting fired, and we're staring down the barrel of that.
I actually laughed at that. I feel like I was like, come on, dude, it's that. Yeah. I feel like I brushed that off, but man, oh man, now when we look at the AFC East standings and Miami is 2 games ahead. I don't even know who they're playing this week,
because right now the Buffalo Bills cannot afford another fine season. They need a great season.
Oh, Miami's playing the Raiders at 1 this week, and it's in Miami. And I know that the Raiders are feeling, they're all in their feels with oh my God, I can't even think of his name right now. But Antonio Pierce, thank you. They're all in their feels right now, but advantage Miami there, I feel.
Well, hey, before we move over to wrapping up week 10, the one thing I want to mention, I just want to plant this seed out there right now to think about it. I know that offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson, will be a very hot coaching candidate this offseason. I am throwing my hat in the ring for Los Angeles Chargers offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. I think if the Buffalo Bills are to get rid of Sean McDermott, they need to go out and get a very
as a head coach, not as a replacement OC. Okay, all right.
As a very smart, young offensive mind. Because right now we are seeing in Dallas, 4 years with Dallas, they twice had the top-ranked offense in yards per game in 2019 and 2021, led the league in points scored in 2021 with 31.2 per game. Moore has played the game both collegiately at Boise State. He was undrafted in 2012. Played for Detroit from 2012 to 14, Dallas from 2015 to 17. He was the Cowboys quarterback coach in 2018, Dallas's OC from 2019 to 2022. Presently the offensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers right now are 7th in the NFL with 26.6 points per game. Buffalo, oddly enough, in 8th with 26.2. But again, I think you can no longer go defensive mind because again, this defense is probably going to look different next year. I mean, you're I hate to say it this way because he's a future Hall of Famer, but you're stuck with Von Miller. You're stuck with Stephon Diggs. Not that that's a bad thing. You're stuck with Josh Allen. That's not a bad thing. But contractually, there is no logistical way those guys can go anywhere. So a lot of core guys are going to be here next year, but you're going to have to go out and get better depth. You're going to have to go out and figure out, well, why did the entire defense get injured? Is it bad luck? Is it bad? Whatever the situation is, you need to figure that out because again, you're going to have to run a lot of it back next year, but maybe just having a different set of eyes, a different mindset, a different voice at One Bills Drive will do that. And I honestly think that Brandon Beane is smart enough to realize that because again, benefit of the doubt, Brandon Beane with how well he's done, if he fires Sean McDermott, hypothetically, he's going to get the chance to hire somebody else. But if you stick with Sean McDermott for too long, then you start to, again, lose that benefit of the doubt.
Right. And then that opens up a whole new world of problems on top of what's already there now. And you're talking, when you talk rebuild, you're talking, that's a complete, like, again, I've said 180 from last season to this season, but 180 from start of process, current process to next process.
And I'm just going to put it out there. I think with Sean McDermott as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, their Super Bowl window may not be closed, but it's certainly been boarded up.
I don't think that they're, and I could be wrong, there's still plenty of football left. I don't know that the opportunity is there this season. For them.
Crazier things have happened. Right. But a lot would need to change.
Yeah, I do agree there. I do agree with that.
Now, wrapping up week 10, John, around the NFL, brought to you by Go Frost Yourself. Please tell the people.
I will tell the people, and I will do it without music this time. Located in Rochester, New York, ladies and gentlemen, Go Frost Yourself does what other local bakeries do not. They bake from scratch, creating recipes themselves using the best and freshest ingredients that they could find to create the delicious flavors for customers daily. Molly and Jen. Hi, Molly. Hi, Jen. They've worked tirelessly to create what Go Frost Yourself has become today, and their passion can be tasted in the items they bake. When you find yourself looking for an item for a special occasion, or maybe you just want to try their incredible cinnamon rolls. If you are local, you know what, Buffalo, you're an hour and some change away from Rochester. Get your ass out here and go visit Go Frost Yourself storefront at 2544 Ridgeway Avenue. That's 14616 for your GPS needs, or at gofrostyourself.com. I'm sorry, 26. I don't know. One of the 26s. Either way, 2544 Ridgeway Avenue. Gofrostyourself.com. Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
That's definitely the way to put it, man.
Very macho today. Yeah.
Walking it out, walking it off, walking it out, I think I meant to say walking it off. Either way, 5 games on Sunday were decided by a game-winning score as time expired in regulation. Excuse me. According to the Elias Sports Bureau, this was the most on a single day in NFL history. The previous record, 3 such games, which happened several times. Even crazier than that, John, The Cleveland Browns trailed for 59 minutes and 20 seconds before Dustin Hopkins' 40-yard field goal secured them a 33-31 win. According to ESPN stats and information, no other team this millennium has won while trailing for that long in a game. Cleveland also became just the fourth team in the Super Bowl era to win after trailing in the opening minute and not leading until the final minute of regulation, according to the Elias Sports Bureau.
And some breaking news from yesterday, the Cleveland quarterback and your boy, I say
breaking
quotes in air.
Breaking news, literally Deshaun Watson's shoulder.
Yep. Done. He's done for the season-ending shoulder surgery. But here's a fun fact for you, and I'm sure you being the stat guy, Ryan, you probably knew this, but did you know, or not even did you know, do you know who was a quarterback on their practice squad this past offseason, Cleveland?
Josh Dobbs.
They
traded him away, man.
Crazy. And now look at him in Minnesota.
And they reportedly did try to reacquire him in at the deadline as well. But John, you really hate to see bad things happen to bad people. It just warms my heart like the Grinch.
Well, yeah. You I
hey, don't be a piece of shit, garbage human being, and be perfectly fine.
Like I've always said, if you play dumb games, you win dumb prizes.
Yep. You fuck around, you're gonna find out. Down in Houston, we've got a quarterback. Houston finishes a game-winning drive with a field goal defeating Cincinnati 30-27. Houston's now 5-4, second in the AFC South. Houston quarterback C.J. Stroud became the fourth rookie in NFL history to compile at least 2,500 passing yards in his first 9 starts. Right now, 2,626 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 2 picks, 22 carries for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. This kid looks like he is the real deal.
He really is. He's got that swag about him. He's got that.
No. Got that dog in him.
I'm sorry. I didn't have the dog soundboard up because they were certainly not talking about the Buffalo Bills being dog. Oh, come on with the volume on here. Sometimes I gotta adjust that there. Dog. There we go. He's got that dog in him. We can't have a podcast without at least pressing this dog 6 times.
Keep going. Keep going. Dog. Because Minnesota keeps on rolling. Speaking of dogs, in his first start with Minnesota, quarterback Josh Dobbs, a.k.a. the Pastronaut, which is
a Pastronaut. I like that. Very good.
He did work with NASA in the offseason. He is I believe a rocket scientist or anything.
He absolutely is. Yes,
brilliant,
that's legitimate. That's not just saying that because we know he's smart. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick at Harvard and everything. Like this dude's legit a rocket. He's very, very, very.
He continues his improbable run with a 27-19 victory over the New Orleans Saints. He was 23 of 34, 268 passing yards, 1 touchdown with 8 rushes for 44 yards and a touchdown. Sunday's victory gives Minnesota their 5th straight victory, pushing their record to 6-4 per the New York Times playoff predictor. Minnesota's chance of making the playoffs increased to 84% with the win on Sunday. Also, Josh Dobbs has 3 straight games with at least 1 passing and 1 rushing touchdown, including his last game with Arizona. The only players with longer streaks since the 1970 merger, Justin Fields, who had 5 of those games in 2022, Kyler Murray with 5 in 2020, and Michael Vick with 4 in 2010. Pretty damn good.
Talk about Minnesota, change of fortune there. Like how awesome is it if you're a Vikings fan? How awesome is it if you're on the Minnesota Vikings when your guy goes down and at the season, they were talking about trading, giving up the farm for everybody there, at one point in time, and now you're looking at it and they now have an 84% chance of making the playoffs when everybody was writing them off for dead in the beginning of the season. Like you gotta. I've always been a little more partial to the Packers when it comes to the NFC North. But in the same, that's 5 in a row, 6 of their last 7.
Seeing the Lions in the Vikings seeing the Lions and the Vikings with Josh Dobbs coming out in the playoffs this year will be a pretty fun storyline.
That absolutely would be a very fun storyline. And they got a Sunday night game now. The Vikings do against the Broncos. And while we're fresh off of the heels of, essentially, in my personal opinion, the Buffalo Bills beating themselves against the Broncos. I'm thinking with the energy, with the vibe that's going on with the Minnesota Vikings, despite the fact they're traveling to Denver for that, I think there's enough there to really keep that mojo going. And personally, I'm there for it.
I mean, Russell Wilson, man, a win's a win. After that game, he's probably feeling pretty unlimited. Gotta say it.
Unlimited. Yeah.
Speaking of that, man, returning to form, the Super Bowl parade in San Francisco is back on. They return from their bye week. They snap a 3-game losing streak in style with a convincing 34-3 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have looked really good this year, mind you.
Yes, absolutely.
San Francisco running back Christian McCaffrey fails to score a touchdown. His scoring streak ends at 17 straight games, which ties him for the all-time record. But for San Francisco, great news. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver, he's back. Offensive lineman Trent Williams, he's back. And defensive end Chase Young made his franchise debut after being acquired at the recent trade deadline from Washington. Recorded, I believe it was a half a sack. Looked absolutely fantastic. The bookend of Nick Bosa and Chase Young, good luck. Just good luck.
Yeah, good luck. I mean, Nick Bosa, not my favorite human being in the world, but in the same from the from a pro.
Nick Bosa is the world's biggest MAGA idiot. No joke.
Yeah,
like if you listen to that guy talk, you can literally hear.
I'd rather pour a funnel of bleach through my eardrums than listen.
Well,
to
if you do that, according to Nick Bosa, if you do that, you will cure yourself from COVID. So,
all right then. Yes, Dr. Nick Bosa, everybody.
It's a callback because Donald Trump's a fucking idiot. Looking ahead, if the season ended today, we're not going to talk about it because the Buffalo Bills are dog shit. So anyway,
they're outside
12,
looking in right now.
Week 12,
but also so are the Bengals. So I guess that's
okay. They'll be fine. Week 12, Buffalo Bills versus New York Jets. Kickoff 4:25 p.m. on Sunday on CBS.
The Who Wants It Least Bowl, ladies and gentlemen.
The New York Jets, 4-5, third in the AFC East. They're the 13th seed in the AFC. They've scored 144 points, had 172 points scored against them. John, I had to get this in here. I'm sorry. In the last 2 games, the New York Jets have scored 1 more point, 18, then penalties against them, 17.
I genuinely considered doing on my Patreon page a Jets Talk podcast very similar to this one. But I don't know. I attempted to write a podcast for that legitimately after like the last 2 weeks. And I could not, because the first word out of and every podcast was fuck. So I scrapped that idea. I'm not surprised to see that you would put this on there, but also it's deserving of being highlighted on there because of how heinous that offensive line has been. Now, don't get me wrong, with the New York Jets, their offensive, they've had like 6 or 7 different makeshift lines there. Just a second while I mute myself and cough.
That's okay.
Thank you very much. But they've had moving parts there with that offensive line. It is extremely shaky. I'm not unlike the majority of idiot Jets fans out there that believe that Zach Wilson solely is the problem. He's not solely the problem. He's certainly not the solution, but he doesn't have a solid enough offensive line to get to give him the opportunity to win. When they protect, he actually does pretty well. And he's actually done, comparatively speaking, pretty well keeping them in the game and moving them as best as they can. But like when we were talking about, Ryan, when we were watching on Sunday night, we were watching the Jets versus the Raiders, and you were like, I don't understand Breece Hall. What's going on? And I'm like, it's that offensive line. And no sooner do I hit send on that, do they prove my point there? And you were like, oh yeah, I see that. So, I mean,
how will Aaron Rodgers want to come back to that this year after getting hurt and thinking, oh, well, I'm going to need to be on the run. I'm going to need to protect myself better because
I think, and you know, following that whole story and everything, like that'd be great. It'd be a great story, but really like Aaron Rodgers coming back, like if the Jets are in contention for the playoffs or they're in the wild card, I could see that. But I think at this point right now, with the way that things are in East Rutherford, particularly with that offensive line, again, I don't blame Zach at all. I am not, and don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Aaron Rodgers back taking snaps and Zach sitting on the bench and learning and all that stuff. But I can't pin this on him. I pin this on that offensive line. It's just not good. It's not good. And when you don't have that protection, I don't care if your name is Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Joe Montana, Y.A. Tittle. I don't care who it was or
Joe
who
Biden.
it is. They're going to be running for their life back there. They're not going to be doing anything. And while the Jets, I think this week have the advantage of a depleted Buffalo Bills defense. So maybe that offense and defense matchup may be a little more balanced than it would be without all of the injuries that the Bills defense has had. The fact that McDermott at minimum is at least coaching up this defense to be competitive and keep them in games, I don't think that bodes well for that Jets offense at all. Now, on the flip side of that, I think what it's really going to boil down to is how this offensive coordinator change in Buffalo matches up against a very, very stellar and tough Jets defense. It's going to be up to the Jets defense to win this game, in the same that it's going to be up to the Bills defense, I feel, to save this game for them. So with that, I know you have, the matchup predictor here, and I don't want to give up the boss on that if you wanted to read that out, but I don't know. It's going to boil down to who wants this game the least. There's no reason for me to believe the Jets are going to play their hearts out and shock the world here, but I'm also not convinced that the Buffalo Bills are going to be any better than they've been the last couple of weeks. I feel like it's going to be who scores it, like the Raiders game. Whoever scores the first touchdown, whenever that may happen, will win the game.
It's fair. The Jets have lost 2 straight games without scoring a touchdown in either game. I wanted to mention that as well. But hey, according to ESPN Matchup Predictor, 79.6% of America believes, 79.6% percent of America believes Buffalo will defeat the Jets. And 100% of people watching this game will wish for the sweet release of death.
I believe that stat wholeheartedly. I will tell you this. If the Jets can score a touchdown, I think they will have a very good shot of winning the game. If they follow suit like they have the last 2 weeks and do not score a touchdown, I don't care how well the defense does. You were able to at least see, in spite of all of the craziness and nonsense that was going on this past Monday night, you saw that one drive where I told you about, now they're playing angry. And you were like, you said, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was like, yeah, okay, I see that point. But the Bills can quickly go down and score at any given moment. So, that's the thing. They can score, right? If you don't have an opposing offense that can match or beat that score, it's like it's a Maddenism right there. You can't win the game if you don't score points, right?
Damn it, you took the words out of my mouth, because I was going to say, when you're talking about, well, if they score a touchdown, they're going to win. If they don't, they're going to lose. I was about to say, thank you.
You can rely.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, you can rely on Greg Zuerlein's leg all you want, and believe you me, that's the only points the Jets have been scoring the last couple of games has been from Greg Zuerlein and his leg, special team player of the week for like the last year because of it, right? But you can't do that against the team. Even in the influx that the Buffalo Bills are in, you still have to come and play your best ball and score on the offensive lines. The defense is keeping this game, or keeping this Jets team, in every single game. The offense is failing them miserably. You cannot have that this game. If the Jets can score on offense, they could figure it out, get 1 or 2 touchdowns, I think they have a realistic shot of winning this game. And then then next week we're talking even more about what's going on in Buffalo. But I think if they can't, that's really what the game is going to boil down to, because I've not seen enough out of the Bills, especially the last 2 to 3 weeks, that would indicate that they could handle the team that, is defensively stout and offensive and can offensively score. That's why the Eagles, Chiefs, and Cowboys games are major concerns, because those 3 teams are set on each side of the ball. The Jets are not. So it's going to boil down to whether or not offensively they can get in rhythm. And I don't know that I see that.
I just hope both teams have fun.
What if they tie? How miserable would it be if they tied?
This podcast will never air ever again. Just the last episode. entitled episode 140. Fuck this.
Episode 140. What the fuck? What the hell's going on? I don't have that one, but because we are where we are in the podcast, I do have to play this.
No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Thanks, Boomer.
Yeah, even if the Bills are awful, the fans will still show up drunk, having a good time. I guess you can always count on that one. But
they need to be after the week that they've had. Holy hell! I don't blame them at all for that.
No matter what happens, good, bad, or indifferent, the rest of the Bills season is in prime time. So, excuse me, except for the Patriots game, which that's all within itself going to be a disaster.
Yep. 425 in 4 consecutive weeks. 8 o'clock
on Saturday,
and then
against the Chargers.
Yep, and then the 1 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and then TBD on January 7th against the Dolphins, which I would assume, depending on if the Bills are still, or if the Dolphins haven't locked it up yet by that point, that'll probably be the Sunday night game. That'd be my guess.
I mean, if that's the case, just I give up. I don't know.
Or it could be the Vikings and the Lions.
Yeah, we'll see what happens either way, man. But either way, aside from a tie, we'll be back here next week, same time, same place. As always, for John Cimino, I am Ryan Wolfe. We are Trust the Podcast.
You're not.
We appreciate you tuning in as always. And I guess I'm contractually obligated to say this, but go Bills.
What the hell's going on out here? 1, 2, 3, 4.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.